The snow fell thick across the gas station lot, coating the row of motorcycles in white. Inside the small convenience store, four men in leather jackets stood near the coffee machine. Their voices were low, their laughter quiet. Patches covered their backs reading Bandidos. Beards covered their faces. They looked like men who had seen things most people only watched in movies. The door swung open. Cold air rushed through the store like a warning. Everyone turned. A little girl stood in the doorway, 7 years old, maybe 8. Her jacket was too thin for this weather. Her hands were bare and red from the cold. Snow clung to her dark hair, melting slowly down her forehead. Her lips had a faint blue tint. She was shaking, but not just from the temperature. Her eyes moved across the room, past the cashier, past the man frozen near the chip aisle, past the humming refrigerators and the stale smell of old coffee. Her gaze stopped on the bikers. She looked at the Bandidos patches, the leather, the big men with beards and tattoos creeping up their necks. Any other child might have turned and run. This girl walked straight toward them. The store went silent. The cashier's hand hovered over the phone beneath the counter. The customer near the chips took a slow step backward, pretending to read a label. The girl stopped right in front of the tallest biker. His jacket said "Ghost" on one side. His eyes were gray like winter sky. A scar ran through his left eyebrow. She looked up at him. Her voice came out small but steady. "My mama didn't come home last night." Nobody moved. The coffee machine gurgled. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Ghost looked down at this tiny girl covered in snow. He saw the fear she was trying to hide behind her straight posture. He saw her hands trembling at her sides. He saw something in her eyes that made his chest tighten. He recognized that look. He had worn it himself a long time ago. The other Bandidos exchanged glances. One of them set down his coffee cup without a sound. Ghost lowered himself slowly, one knee pressing against the cold tile floor. His leather jacket creaked as he moved. He made himself smaller, less like a wall, more like a door. "What's your name?" he asked. His voice was low and calm, like he was talking to a scared animal. "Luna." "Luna," he repeated. "Oh, that's a pretty name. Means moon, right?" She nodded. "Okay, Luna. Tell me about your mama. When did you last see her?" Luna's lower lip trembled for just a second. Then she steadied herself. "She went to work yesterday, at the diner on Mill Street. She always comes home by midnight. She always checks on me. She always kisses my forehead before she goes to sleep." Ghost waited. "Last night, nothing." Luna's voice cracked but held. No call, no text, no mama. The biker behind Ghost shifted his weight. The cashier's fingers twitched near the phone. "Did you call someone? A neighbor? Family?" Luna shook her head. "It's just me and Mama. We don't have anybody else." "So what did you do?" "I waited until morning. Then I walked here." Ghost's eyebrows lifted slightly. "You walked in this snow? 2 miles?" "I counted the blocks," Luna said. The man near the chips finally moved, heading for the door like he wanted no part of whatever this was becoming. The bell chimed as he left. Ghost studied the girl's face. "Why here, Luna? Why not the police station? There's one on Birch Street. That's closer to Mill." Luna met his eyes. For a 7-year-old, her gaze was strangely steady. "Mama told me something once. She said if I was ever in real trouble, find the men with motorcycles. She said, they help people." Luna paused. "Even when no one else will." Something cracked inside Ghost's chest. A memory surfaced. A little girl with pigtails running toward him across a parking lot, arms open wide. "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy." The memory disappeared as quickly as it came. He stood, his knees popped. He looked at his brothers, and no words were needed. They understood. "Okay, Luna." Ghost reached into his pocket and pulled out his keys. "We're going to find your mama." Luna's eyes filled with tears. She refused to let them fall. "You will?" "Yeah, kid, we will." The Bandidos moved toward the door. One of them grabbed a cup of hot chocolate from the machine and pressed it into Luna's frozen hands. Another pulled off his gloves and handed them to her without a word. Then one of the bikers stopped. He was looking at his phone. His face went pale. "Ghost." Something in his voice made everyone freeze. "What?" The biker turned the screen around. A news alert glowed red across the top. Abandoned vehicle found on Route 7 early this morning. Doors open. Engine still running. Ghost's jaw tightened. The biker scrolled down. His voice dropped. Blood on the driver's seat. Luna looked up at Ghost. Her hot chocolate trembled in her hands. She didn't say a word. She didn't have to. Maria Santos untied her apron and stuffed it into her locker. Her feet throbbed. Her lower back ached from 8 hours of carrying heavy plates. But she smiled as she counted the bills in her hand. $47 in tips, enough for groceries. And maybe that little stuffed rabbit Luna kept looking at in the dollar store window. She grabbed her coat and waved goodbye to the night cook. The Cedar Falls diner was quiet now, just 2 customers finishing their pie in the corner booth. The clock above the register read 11:15. This was her second job. Mornings she cleaned offices downtown. Afternoons she slept when Luna was at school. Nights she worked here. Sleep was a luxury she had given up a long time ago. Every extra shift was for Luna. Every tired morning was for Luna. Every sacrifice had her daughter's face attached to it. Maria stepped out into the cold night air and walked toward her car. The apartment was only 10 minutes away. Luna would be pretending to sleep when she got home. She always did, and Maria would kiss her forehead anyway. Luna would giggle and open her eyes. Then they would share a snack, and Maria would tell her about the funny customers from the diner. That was their routine. Simple, predictable, safe. The apartment was small, 1 bedroom they shared, a kitchen with a stove that only worked on 2 burners, a bathroom with a leak under the sink Maria kept meaning to fix, but it was clean. It was theirs. Luna's drawings covered the refrigerator door, a house with a big yard, a dog they would never be able to afford. Maria standing tall with a crown on her head because Luna said mamas were queens. In the corner of the living room stood a small houseplant 3 feet tall. Maria had found it at a garage sale for $5. The decorations were handmade, paper shapes painted gold, a tiny flower made from cotton balls and ribbon. Luna had helped with every single one. It was not much, but it was everything. Maria pulled into her parking spot and sat in the car for a moment. She let herself breathe. These quiet seconds between work and home were the only time she had to herself. She thought about the past 2 years, how far she had come, how hard she had fought to build this small, fragile life. Then she thought about Ray. Ray Dalton had seemed like destiny when they first met. He was charming. He opened doors. He remembered her coffee order. He bought Luna a teddy bear on their second date. But slowly things changed. He started checking her phone. He wanted to know where she was every minute. He showed up at her job to watch her through the window. He told her which clothes made her look cheap. When Maria finally found the courage to leave, Ray did not let go. He called her 40 times a day. He parked outside her apartment. He sent messages that swung between love and rage in the same sentence. Maria filed a police report, but the officer just shrugged. No direct threats, no physical contact, nothing they could act on. Ray was careful. He always stayed just inside the line. For 6 months, things went quiet. Maria changed her number. She picked up extra shifts. She focused on Luna and let herself believe the nightmare was over. Then 2 days ago, Ray walked into the diner. He sat in her section, booth 4 by the window. He ordered black coffee and a slice of apple pie. He smiled at her like they were old friends catching up. Maria's hands shook as she poured his coffee. She did not speak to him beyond taking his order. When he left, she found a note folded under his cup. The note said he had been watching. He knew her schedule. He knew which school Luna attended. He knew Maria had no one to help her. The note ended with 4 words. We belong together. Maria did not tell anyone. She did not want to scare Luna. She thought maybe he just wanted to frighten her. She thought she could handle it alone. She was wrong. On the night she disappeared, Maria finished her shift at 11 Suriname. She said goodbye to the cook. She pushed through the back door into the parking lot. The lot was empty. Her car sat alone in the far corner. The street light above her usual spot was dark. The bulb had burned out days ago, and no one had fixed it. Maria walked quickly. Her keys were already in her hand. She pressed the unlock button and heard the familiar chirp. 10 more steps. 8. 5. A shadow moved in her peripheral vision. Maria started to turn. Her mouth opened to scream. A hand clamped over her face, an arm wrapped around her waist. She tried to fight. She kicked backward. Her keys fell to the pavement. A voice whispered in her ear, a voice she knew. "I told you, Maria, we belong together." Then everything went dark. Ray Dalton stood at the window of his cabin and watched the snow fall. His breath fogged the glass. His fingers drummed against the wooden frame. Behind him, the wall told a story only he understood. Photographs covered every inch. Maria at the diner pouring coffee with that tired smile. Maria walking Luna to school, holding her small hand at the crosswalk. Maria at the grocery store checking prices on canned soup. Maria asleep in her bed, captured through a gap in her curtains. 2 years of watching, 2 years of waiting, 2 years of planning for this moment. Ray did not see himself as a monster. Monsters were strangers in dark alleys. Monsters were men who hurt random women. He was different. Maria belonged to him. She had promised him forever. She had said those 3 words and meant them. Or at least she should have meant them. When she left, she took something from him. His pride, his future, his control over his own life. Everything that went wrong after that was her fault. He turned from the window and walked across the cabin. The floorboards creaked under his boots. A wood stove in the corner pushed weak heat into the room. The place had belonged to his grandfather, a hard man who taught Ray that some things in life you had to take. Ray had learned that lesson well. For 2 years, he studied Maria like a textbook. He memorized her schedule down to the minute. He knew which nights she worked late at the diner. He knew the back roads she took to save gas. He knew her old car had a heater that barely pushed warm air through the vents. He knew she was alone, completely alone. The night of her disappearance, everything fell into place. The snow started falling around 8, heavy and thick, perfect cover. The street light above her parking spot had been dark for 2 days. Ray had climbed the pole himself and smashed the bulb with a rock. The parking lot was empty because Ray had slashed tires on 3 cars that afternoon. The owners left early to deal with the damage. No witnesses, no interruptions. Every detail calculated, every obstacle removed. When Maria walked out of the diner at 11:15, Ray was waiting. He watched her from behind the dumpster. Her keys were already in her hand. She walked fast. She knew something was wrong. He could see it in her shoulders, tight and high. But knowing and acting were 2 different things. He moved quick. His hand covered her mouth before she could scream. His arm wrapped around her waist and lifted her off the ground. She kicked. She twisted. Her keys fell to the pavement with a small metal sound. The snow muffled everything. Ray dragged her to his truck parked behind the dumpster. No cameras back there. He had checked twice. He shoved her inside and zip-tied her wrists before she could fight back again. Maria's eyes burned with fury. She did not cry. She did not beg. She just stared at him with a look that made his skin crawl. "You did this to yourself," he told her as he started the engine. "You made me do this." She said nothing. Her silence was louder than any scream. The drive to the cabin took 40 minutes. The roads were getting bad. Snow piled on the windshield faster than the wipers could clear it. But Ray knew these roads. He had driven them 100 times in his head, preparing for this night. No one would follow. No one would look. By morning, the snow would bury all tracks. At the cabin, he pulled her from the truck and pushed her through the front door. He tied her to a wooden chair near the stove. The rope bit into her wrists. A bruise was forming on her cheek from the struggle. Ray crouched in front of her. His face was calm, almost gentle. "I don't want to hurt you, Maria. I never wanted that. I just need you to understand." Maria's voice came out dry. "Understand what?" "That we belong together. That leaving was a mistake. That you still love me." She laughed. It was a short, bitter sound. "I never loved you, Ray. I was afraid of you. There's a difference." His jaw tightened. This was not how it was supposed to go. She was supposed to cry. She was supposed to apologize. She was supposed to see that everything he did was because he loved her. Instead, she looked at him with something worse than hatred. Pity. Ray stood abruptly. His hands were shaking. He walked to the door and stepped outside into the cold. He needed air. He needed to think. He pulled a cigarette from his pocket and lit it with trembling fingers. The smoke mixed with his breath in the frozen air. The snow was falling heavier now, blanketing everything in white silence. He told himself he had time. No one was looking for her yet. No one knew where to look. He could wait. He could make her understand. Then he saw them, 2 miles down the mountain road. Headlights cut through the storm. Not cars. The lights were too close together, too low to the ground. Motorcycles. 3 of them moving slow but steady through the snow. Coming closer. Ray dropped his cigarette into the snow. His heart began to pound. No one should be on this road. Not in this weather. Not at this hour. He stepped back inside the cabin and locked the door. Ghost gripped the map so tight his knuckles turned white. The other Bandidos stood around him in the gas station parking lot, engines still ticking from the cold. Luna sat inside the store with the cashier, both hands wrapped around her hot chocolate, watching through the window. She had not taken her eyes off Ghost since he promised to find her mother. The news alert still glowed on Diesel's phone. Abandoned vehicle on Route 7. Doors open, engine running, blood on the driver's seat. Ghost stared at the map, but his mind was somewhere else. 10 years back, a different life, a different name. He was Marcus Riley then, construction foreman, husband, father. His world fit inside a small house with yellow shutters and a swing set in the backyard. Sophie was 6 years old. She had his gray eyes and her mother's laugh. She collected ladybugs in mason jars and released them before dinner because she said bugs had families too. She called him Daddy Bear. Every night, she fell asleep listening to him read the same book about a rabbit who got lost and found his way home. He read that book 200 times. He would give anything to read it again. One winter night, Marcus worked late. A deadline, a client who would not stop calling. He told his wife he would meet them for dinner. She took Sophie to get hot chocolate at the cafe downtown. Sophie's favorite, extra whipped cream, a candy cane to stir it with. A drunk driver ran the red light at 5th and Main. The impact was instant. Glass and metal and screaming brakes. His wife survived. 3 broken ribs, a fractured wrist, scars that faded over time. Sophie did not make it to the hospital. Ghost closed his eyes for a moment. The memory cut through him like it happened yesterday. The phone call, the drive to the hospital. The white sheet pulled back to show her face, peaceful like she was sleeping. The grief nearly destroyed him. His marriage crumbled first, not from anger, not from blame, just from the weight of looking at each other and seeing the empty space where Sophie should have been. They could not carry it together, so they fell apart. Marcus turned to alcohol, then to silence, then to the road. He sold the house. He quit his job. He bought a motorcycle from a guy who needed cash more than he needed wheels. The engine was loud enough to drown out the thoughts. The wind was cold enough to numb the pain. The miles stretched out like a promise that somewhere ahead things might hurt less. They never did, but the riding helped anyway. He found the Bandidos by accident, broke down on a highway in Nevada, middle of nowhere, sun beating down. No cell service, no water. A group of bikers pulled over. They did not ask questions. They did not offer empty words about time-healing wounds. They fixed his carburetor, shared their water, and invited him to ride with them to the next town. He never left. The brotherhood gave him something he thought was gone forever. Purpose, not happiness. He did not expect that anymore, but purpose was enough to keep breathing. He earned his patch after 2 years. He earned his nickname before that, Ghost, because he moved through rooms without sound, because his eyes saw everything while revealing nothing, because sometimes when the brothers looked at him, they got the feeling that part of Marcus Riley had died in that car crash too. Maybe it had, but the part that survived found a reason to keep going. Every child they helped was Sophie. Every mother they protected was the wife he failed to comfort. Every rescue was a small piece of his soul returning from wherever it had gone that winter night. Now he stood in a frozen parking lot with a map in his hands and a 7-year-old watching him through the window. Luna looked nothing like Sophie. Different hair, different face, different voice. But the fear in her eyes was the same. That helpless, desperate fear of a child who needed an adult to make things right. Ghost would not fail this time. He spread the map across the seat of his motorcycle. The other Bandidos gathered close. Diesel, Roach, Tiny, brothers who had ridden through worse. Route 7, Ghost said, tracing the line with his finger. Car was found here near mile marker 12. That's where the road splits. Splits to what? Diesel asked. Old mountain roads, logging trails, a few cabins up in the hills, most of them abandoned. Ghost tapped a spot on the map. 100 places to hide someone if you don't want them found. Cops will search, Roach said. Cops don't know these roads. Ghost looked up. His gray eyes were steady. We do. Tiny shifted his weight. You think she's still alive? Ghost did not answer right away. He looked through the window at Luna. She had not moved. Her hot chocolate sat untouched, growing cold. I know where I'd take someone, Ghost said quietly, if I wanted them never to be found. He folded the map and shoved it inside his jacket. Let's ride. Ghost pulled on his gloves and checked his phone one more time. The map was burned into his memory now. Route 7 to mile marker 12. Then the split left toward the old logging trails, right toward the mountain cabins. Somewhere up there, a mother was waiting. Luna stood by the gas station door, wrapped in a blanket that swallowed her small frame. Maggie had an arm around her shoulders. Maggie was Diesel's wife. 30 years of marriage to a bandido had taught her how to be steady when everything else was falling apart. She did not ask Luna questions. She did not try to fill the silence with empty comfort. She simply stayed close. Sometimes that was enough. Ghost walked toward his bike, but small footsteps followed him across the frozen lot. He turned. Luna had broken away from Maggie. The blanket dragged behind her through the snow. Wait, she said. Her voice was barely louder than the wind. Ghost stopped. He crouched down so their eyes were level. What is it? Luna looked back at Maggie, then at the other bikers loading their saddlebags. Her fingers twisted the edge of her blanket. I need to tell you something. Something I didn't say before. Ghost waited. He had learned long ago that children spoke when they were ready, not when adults pushed. A few weeks ago, I saw a man. Luna's voice dropped to almost a whisper. He was watching our apartment. He stood across the street under the big tree. He didn't move for a really long time. Did you tell your mom? Luna nodded. She went white like all the color left her face. But she said it was nothing. Just a stranger passing by. Ghost felt something tighten in his chest. But you didn't believe her. Mamas lie sometimes, when they're trying to protect you. Luna looked down at her feet. I always know when she's lying. Her voice gets too soft. Did you see the man again? Luna's hand stopped twisting the blanket. At my school. He was parked in a car by the playground, just sitting there watching. Did you tell anyone? I wanted to tell my teacher, but I was scared. Luna's lower lip trembled. I thought maybe they would take me away from Mama. Put me somewhere else. I didn't want to make trouble. Ghost felt a cold anger building in his gut. Not at Luna. Never at Luna. At the world that made a 7-year-old afraid to ask for help. You're not in trouble, he said quietly. You did nothing wrong. Luna met his eyes. 3 days ago, the man came back. He stood at the fence during recess. He smiled at me. He waved. She paused. Like he knew me. Like he was waiting for something. Ghost's jaw tightened. Can you tell me what he looked like? Brown hair, a beard. Not a big beard like yours. A small one. Luna closed her eyes, remembering. He drove a blue truck. It had a dent on the side and a sticker on the back. A fish. Ghost went still. He knew that truck. Everyone in Cedar Falls knew that truck. It belonged to Ray Dalton. The pieces connected in his mind like a lock clicking open. Ray's obsession with Maria. The restraining orders that never held. The rumors about his temper that everyone whispered, but no one acted on. The cabin his grandfather left him. Up in the mountains where the roads turned to mud in spring and ice in winter. Ghost stood slowly. His knees popped in the cold. He looked across the lot at his brothers. Diesel caught his expression. You got something? Ray Dalton. The name landed like a stone in still water. Every biker knew it. Roach spit into the snow. That piece of garbage. The one who stalked that waitress a few years back. Same one. Ghost walked toward his bike. He's got a cabin up on Miller Ridge. 20 minutes past where they found the car. Tiny frown. You sure? The girl described his truck. Blue with a dent. Fish sticker on the bumper. Ghost swung his leg over his motorcycle. I'm sure. The Bandidos exchanged looks. No more questions needed. Police needed warrants. They needed evidence. They needed judges to sign papers and supervisors to approve overtime. The system moved slow, and sometimes slow meant too late. The bikers needed only three things: motorcycles, a location, and a reason. They had all three. Ghost was about to kick his engine to life when his phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out. The screen showed a name he recognized: Danny Chen, a dispatcher at the Cedar Falls police station, a friend who sometimes shared information that never made official reports. Ghost answered, "Talk to me." Danny's voice was tight. The blood from the car came back. "It's her type, Maria Santos." Ghost closed his eyes. "How much blood?" "Enough to suggest injury, not enough to suggest—" Danny paused. "She's alive, Ghost, probably. But in this weather, without shelter, without medical attention—" "How long?" 12 hours, maybe less. The temperature's dropping tonight. Single digits by midnight." Ghost looked at the sky. Gray clouds pressed down on the mountains like a lid on a pot. 12 hours, maybe less. "Thanks, Danny." He ended the call and looked at his brothers. Their engines were already rumbling. Exhaust rose white against the cold air. "She's alive," Ghost said. "For now. We've got 12 hours before the cold takes her." Nobody spoke. Nobody needed to. Ghost kicked his bike to life. The engine roared through the silence. The clock was counting down now. Ghost pushed his motorcycle through another wall of white. The snow hit his visor like tiny fists, relentless and blinding. His headlight carved a narrow tunnel through the storm, showing maybe 10 feet of road before everything disappeared into gray. Behind him, 8 engines rumbled in formation. 8 brothers following him into the mountains on a night when any reasonable person would be home by a fire. They were not reasonable people, not tonight. The temperature had dropped 15 degrees in the last hour. Ghost could feel it through his leather gloves, through his jacket, through every layer he wore. His fingers were going numb on the handlebars. His face burned where the wind found gaps in his gear. None of it mattered. Somewhere ahead, a woman was freezing. Somewhere behind, a little girl was waiting for her mother to come home. Ghost raised his left hand. The signal passed back through the line. Slow down. Ice ahead. The road curved sharply to the right, and he could see the pavement glistening where snow had melted and refrozen into a death trap. They took the curve at walking speed. Tiny's back wheel slipped for a second. He corrected without panic. 20 years on a bike taught you how to dance with ice. The mountain road climbed higher. Trees pressed close on both sides, their branches heavy with snow. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. Ghost navigated by memory now, counting curves, remembering landmarks from rides he took years ago. He thought about Ray Dalton, about men like him. Ghost had met the type before, in bars, in prison visiting rooms, in the stories that brothers told late at night when the bourbon was flowing. Control was their drug. They needed it like air. When they had it, they seemed normal, charming even. But when they lost it, when someone dared to walk away, something broke inside them. Ray had lost control when Maria left. 2 years of stalking was his attempt to get it back. Taking her was his final move. The desperate act of a man who could not accept that some things were not his to own. Ghost understood the psychology. Ray thought he was safe up here. The snow was his ally. The isolation was his shield. No one would come looking in this weather. No one would find the cabin until spring. Ray did not know that 8 Bandidos motorcycles were cutting through his protection right now. They passed mile marker 12. Police tape stretched between 2 trees, snapping in the wind. Maria's car had been towed, but Ghost could see the tracks in the snow where it had sat. The officers were gone. Too cold, too dangerous. The search would resume in the morning when conditions improved. Morning might be too late. Ghost checked his phone. No signal this far up the mountain. They were on their own now. He raised his hand again. Full stop. The engines died one by one until the only sound was wind through the trees. "We're a mile out," Ghost said. His voice was low, barely above a whisper. Sound carried strange and mountain air. "From here we walk." Nobody argued. Nobody asked questions. They pushed the motorcycles off the road and into an abandoned barn that sagged under the weight of snow on its roof. The wood creaked as they entered. Something scurried in the rafters, but the walls blocked the wind, and that was enough. Ghost gathered his brothers in a tight circle. Their breath rose in white clouds. Diesel and Roach circle behind the cabin. Stay in the trees. If he runs out the back, you stop him. Diesel nodded. Roach cracked his knuckles. Tiny and Bear watched the road. If anyone comes up or tries to go down, I want to know. Tiny pulled his collar higher against the cold. Got it. The rest of us approached from the front. 3 teams, every exit covered. Ghost looked at each man in turn. We don't know what we're walking into. Ray might be armed. He might be desperate. We go careful. We go quiet. And if he fights? Diesel asked. Ghost's jaw tightened. Then he fights all of us. They moved out into the storm. Snow reached their knees within minutes. Each step was a battle against the drifts. The cold cut through leather like it was paper. Ghost led the way, following a path he could barely see. The trees provided some cover from the wind, but not much. His legs burned. His lungs ached, but he kept moving. 20 minutes later, he raised his fist. Everyone stopped. Through the trees, a shape emerged from the white. The cabin, small old wood, a porch with a broken railing. A light glowed in the window. Smoke rose from the chimney, disappearing into the storm. Someone was home. Ghost crept closer, using a thick pine trunk for cover. He could see the window now. Frost covered the edges of the glass. But the center was clear. A face appeared. A woman, dark hair matted and tangled. A bruise on her cheek. Maria. She was alive, but her expression made Ghost's blood freeze colder than the wind ever could. Pure terror filled her eyes, not the fear of being trapped. Something worse. Something immediate. She was looking at something inside the cabin. Ghost shifted position. Through the gap in the curtains, he could see movement. A figure pacing back and forth. Ray. He held something in his hand. Something that caught the firelight and reflected it back. Something metal. Ghost pressed himself against the tree and signaled his brothers. They were out of time. Ghost pressed his back against the rough cabin wall and counted heartbeats. Inside, Ray was pacing. The metal object in his hand caught the firelight with each pass. Maria sat tied to a chair, her face a mask of controlled terror. A direct assault would get her killed. Ray was cornered, desperate. The knife would find her throat before they cleared the threshold. Ghost needed another way. He signaled to Diesel and Roach. 2 fingers pointed toward the back of the cabin, then a cutting motion across his palm. They understood immediately and disappeared into the swirling snow. The cabin was old, built in the 60s by Ray's grandfather. Ghost had seen a dozen like it over the years. Simple construction, single electrical line running from a pole 50 yards out. 1 breaker box mounted on the exterior wall. Cut the power, kill the lights, create chaos. Ghost waited. The wind howled through the trees. Snow stung his exposed skin. 30 seconds passed. A minute. Then the cabin went dark. The light in the window vanished. The hum of electricity died. Inside, Ray's voice rose in surprise. A curse. Then footsteps moving fast toward the window. Ghost crept to the front door. The wood was warped from years of mountain weather. Gaps showed between the planks. He could hear Ray breathing hard on the other side. Ray. Ghost kept his voice calm, steady like they were old friends catching up. Ray Dalton. The footsteps stopped. I know what you did. Ghost let the words hang in the cold air. I know Maria is in there. I know about the blood in her car. Silence, then a rustling sound. Ray moving closer to the door. Who are you? That doesn't matter. What matters is what happens next. Ghost placed his palm flat against the door. Police are on their way up the mountain. Another hour, maybe less. This is your one chance to walk out peaceful. Ray laughed. The sound was brittle, high-pitched. The laugh of a man losing his grip on reality. You think I'm stupid? No one's coming up here in this storm. No one even knows this place exists. I found it. Others will too. Then you can watch what happens next. Ray's voice dropped to something cold. I have a knife. You come through that door, she bleeds. You understand me? She bleeds out on this floor before you take one step. Ghost expected this. The hostage threat, the illusion of control. Men like Ray always reached for it when they felt power slipping away. But Ghost knew something Ray did not. The cabin had two doors. While Ghost held Ray's attention at the front, two shadows moved through the snow behind the structure. Bear and Tiny, 300 lbs each, silent as ghosts when they needed to be. Bear reached the back door first. He pressed his ear against the wood. Voices from the front. Ray shouting something about staying back. The man was focused entirely on the wrong threat. Bear tried the handle. It turned unlocked. Ray's arrogance was showing. He never expected anyone to find this place. Never expected to need locks. The door swung inward without a sound. Cold air rushed into the dark cabin. Bear stepped inside. Tiny right behind him. They moved by touch. The layout was simple. A narrow hallway led to the main room. Kitchen to the left, bathroom to the right, bedroom at the back where they entered. Bear's hand found the wall. He followed it forward. His boots made no sound on the wooden floor. In the main room, Maria sat rigid in her chair. Her wrists were raw from the rope. Her cheek was swollen where Ray had struck her, but her eyes were adjusting to the darkness. She could see shapes now. Movement. She saw Ray at the front window, his back to the room. The knife glinted in his hand. Then she saw something else. A massive shape emerging from the hallway, moving toward her. Maria's heart hammered. She wanted to scream, to warn someone, but then a hand touched her shoulder. Gentle, reassuring. Bear leaned close to her ear. "We're here to help. Stay quiet." He pulled a folding knife from his pocket and sliced through the ropes. First her wrists, then her ankles. The blood rushed back into her hands, painful and electric. Bear put a finger to his lips. They needed to move. Get her out the back. Let Ghost handle Ray. Maria nodded. She understood. Tiny helped her stand. Her legs were weak. Hours of sitting in the cold had stolen their strength. She leaned against him, one arm over his massive shoulders. They turned toward the hallway. The floor creaked. Old wood, dry and brittle. It screamed under Tiny's weight like an alarm. Ray spun around. For a moment, everyone froze. Maria halfway to freedom. Tiny supporting her weight. Bear between them and the darkness. Ray's eyes found them. His face twisted into something inhuman. "No!" He lunged across the room. The knife rose in his fist, catching a sliver of moonlight from the window. Bear stepped forward. No weapon, no hesitation. Just 280 lbs of muscle and a lifetime of standing between predators and prey. Ray's arm came down. Maria screamed. The knife came down fast. Steel caught the faint moonlight streaming through the window. Ray's face twisted with rage as he drove the blade toward Maria. Bear did not step back. He stepped forward. The knife sliced through his leather jacket and found the flesh beneath. A 6-inch gash opened across his forearm. Blood welled up immediately, dark and warm. Bear did not flinch, did not cry out, did not hesitate. His bloody hand shot forward and locked around Ray's wrist like a steel trap. Fingers dug into tendons. Bones ground together under the pressure. Ray screamed. His grip on the knife loosened. "Get her out," Bear said through gritted teeth. His voice was calm, controlled, like this was just another day. Tiny grabbed Maria around the waist and lifted her off her feet. She was too weak to run on her own. Hours of sitting in the cold had stolen the strength from her legs. "No!" Ray thrashed against Bear's grip. "She's mine. She belongs to me." Tiny carried Maria toward the back door. She looked over his shoulder at the struggle, at Bear's blood dripping onto the wooden floor, at Ray's face contorted with fury. Then they were outside. Cold air hit her lungs like a slap. Snow swirled around them. The storm was finally weakening, but the temperature had dropped even further. Bear waited by the tree line. He pulled off his jacket and wrapped it around Maria's shoulders. The leather was warm from his body heat. It smelled like motor oil and cigarettes. It was the most comforting thing she had ever felt. "You're safe now," Bear said. His voice was surprisingly gentle for a man his size. "It's over." Maria's legs gave out. She collapsed into the snow, and Bear caught her before she hit the ground. He lowered her slowly, keeping her upright against his chest. And inside the cabin, the fight continued. Ray yanked his arm free and stumbled backward. Blood ran down Bear's forearm in steady streams. It pooled on the floor between them. "You think you're heroes," Ray spat. His eyes were wild, desperate. "You're criminals, thugs. When the cops get here, they'll arrest all of you." Bear said nothing. He advanced slowly, cutting off Ray's path to the door. Ray grabbed a chair and swung it. Bear blocked with his injured arm, grunting at the impact. The chair shattered against his forearm. Then Bear moved fast and precise. His right hand caught Ray's throat. His left grabbed the man's belt. In one smooth motion, he lifted Ray off his feet and slammed him onto the floor. The cabin shook. Ray gasped. The wind knocked out of him. Bear dropped his knee onto Ray's chest, not hard enough to break ribs, just hard enough to keep him pinned. "Stay down." Ray struggled. He cursed. He threatened. But his body would not obey. The impact had stolen his strength. The front door burst open. Ghost stepped inside, snow swirling around his boots. His eyes took in the scene in a single glance. Bear bleeding but victorious. Ray on the floor gasping like a landed fish, the knife lying forgotten in the corner. Ghost reached into his pocket and pulled out a handful of zip ties. He tossed them to Bear. "Secure him." Bear rolled Ray onto his stomach and pulled his wrists together. The zip ties clicked tight, not brutal, not loose, just enough to hold. Ray turned his head and looked up at Ghost. "You have no idea what you've done. Her and me, we have history. She owes me. She promised me things." Ghost crouched down. His gray eyes met Ray's without a trace of emotion. "The only thing she owes you is nothing." His voice was quiet, almost gentle. "And the only thing you're getting is a cell." He stood and walked away. Outside, Maria sat in the snow with Bear's jacket wrapped around her. Her entire body shook. The cold, the fear, the relief. Everything crashed into her at once. Ghost knelt beside her. Snow crunched under his weight. "Luna is safe," he said. "She's at the gas station with Maggie, warm, fed, waiting for you." Maria's eyes widened. "She walked through the storm. She found help." Ghost nodded. 2 miles in the snow. She came straight to us, told us everything." Maria's face crumpled. Tears streamed down her cheeks, freezing in tiny lines before they reached her jaw. "That's my girl," she whispered. "That's my brave girl." "You raised a fighter," Ghost said. "She saved your life tonight," Maria sobbed. Deep shaking sounds that came from somewhere primal. These were not tears of despair. These were the tears of a mother who thought she would never hold her daughter again. Roach pulled out his phone. The storm had cleared enough for a signal. He dialed 911 and gave their location. Ambulances were dispatched. A helicopter was en route. Sirens began in the distance. Faint at first, then growing louder. Red and blue lights flickered through the trees, painting the snow in alternating colors. A police cruiser skidded to a stop at the edge of the property. 2 officers stepped out, hands on their weapons. They saw 8 men in leather jackets, Bandidos patches on their backs, blood on the snow. A man zip-tied on the cabin floor. The first officer drew his weapon and pointed it at Ghost. "Nobody move. Hands where I can see them." Ghost raised his hands slowly. So did the others. The officer's eyes moved from face to face. Suspicion hardened his expression. "On your knees, all of you now." The rescuers looked at each other. For a tense moment, the men who had just saved Maria's life looked like they might spend the night in handcuffs. The officer's weapon stayed level with Ghost's chest. Red and blue lights strobed across the snow, turning the scene into a frozen nightmare of shadows and color. "I said on your knees, now." Ghost lowered himself slowly. His knees pressed into the cold ground. Behind him, his brothers did the same. 8 men in leather kneeling in the snow like criminals. Maria tried to stand. "No, wait, you don't understand. They saved me." Ma'am, stay where you are." The second officer moved toward her, hand outstretched. "We'll sort this out." Ray's voice cut through the chaos. "Officers, finally, you're here. These men broke into my cabin. They attacked me. I want them arrested." The first officer's eyes flickered toward the cabin, toward Ray, zip-tied on the floor, toward the blood on the snow. "Everyone stay calm. We're going to figure out what happened here." Ghost kept his hands visible. His voice came out steady. "The woman's name is Maria Santos. She was reported missing this morning. Her car was found on Route 7 with blood on the driver's seat. This man took her. The officer studied Ghost's face. Something shifted in his expression. Recognition. Marcus. Marcus Riley. Ghost met his eyes. It's been a long time. Danny. Officer Danny Chen lowered his weapon slightly. They had played football together at Cedar Falls High 30 years ago. A lifetime. You know this guy? His partner asked. Yeah, I know him. Danny looked at Maria, at the bruises on her face, at the rope burns on her wrists. He looked at Ray, still shouting about pressing charges. He looked at the cabin with its broken door and dark windows. Danny holstered his weapon. Get statements from everyone and get that piece of garbage into a cruiser. 2 more patrol cars arrived. Officers swarmed the scene. Ray was hauled to his feet and dragged toward a waiting vehicle. He screamed the entire way, "This isn't over. I have rights. I'll sue every one of you." Nobody listened. The cruiser door slammed shut. The screaming became muffled, then silent as the car pulled away. Paramedics rushed to Maria. They wrapped her in thermal blankets. They started an IV. They checked her vitals and dressed the cut on her forehead. "We need to transport her," one paramedic said. "Hypothermia, possible concussion. She needs a hospital." Maria grabbed the paramedic's arm. I need to see my daughter first." "Ma'am, your condition—" "I'm not leaving until I see her." The paramedic looked at Ghost. Ghost nodded. "Make the call," he said. "Bring the girl." Roach pulled out his phone. The conversation was brief. Maggie was already on her way. The next hour crawled by. Maria sat in the ambulance fighting to stay awake. The paramedics monitored her condition. Ghost stood outside watching the road. Finally, headlights appeared through the trees. Maggie's SUV crept up the mountain road, tires struggling for traction. It stopped 20 feet from the ambulance. The passenger door flew open. Luna burst out of the car. She did not look at the police. She did not look at the Bandidos. Her eyes found the ambulance, found the open doors, found her mother wrapped in blankets. She ran. Her small boots kicked up snow with each step. Her arms pumped at her sides. Her face was a mixture of terror and hope. Maria saw her coming. She pushed herself up despite the paramedics' protests. Her arms opened wide. Luna crashed into her mother's embrace. The impact nearly knocked Maria backward. The IV stand wobbled. A blanket fell to the floor. None of it mattered. Maria wrapped her arms around her daughter and held on like the world was ending. Luna buried her face in her mother's neck. Her small body shook with sobs. "Mama, Mama, Mama. I'm here, baby, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I was so scared. You didn't come home. I didn't know what to do." Maria pulled back just enough to look at Luna's face. Tears streamed down both their cheeks. "You walked through a snowstorm to find help. You saved my life, Luna. My brave, brave girl." Ghost watched from 30 feet away. He did not approach. This moment was not his, but Luna looked up. Her eyes searched the crowd of officers and paramedics and bikers. They found Ghost standing alone near a pine tree. She raised her hand, a small wave, 5 tiny fingers moving through the cold air. "Thank you," the wave said. "Thank you for believing me. Thank you for finding her." Ghost nodded. Just once. Something loosened in his chest. A knot that had lived there for 10 years, tight and permanent. It did not disappear. It would never disappear completely. But it loosened. Maria gestured for him to come closer. Ghost hesitated, then walked to the ambulance. She reached out and took his hand. Her grip was weak, exhausted, but her eyes burned with gratitude. "Why?" she asked. "Why would you do this? You don't even know us." Ghost looked at Luna, still pressed against her mother's side. "Your daughter walked 2 miles through a blizzard to ask for help. That kind of courage deserves an answer." He paused. "Besides, looking after kids is what we do. It's who we are." Maria squeezed his hand. Words failed her. The squeeze said everything. Officer Danny Chen approached. His face was serious. "Ghost, we searched the cabin." Ghost turned. "And we found photographs, dozens of them hidden in a lockbox under the floorboards." Danny's jaw tightened. Not just Maria, other women, other children. Addresses, schedules, notes about routines. Ghost felt his stomach drop. Ray wasn't planning one abduction. Danny said quietly. He was planning several. Some of those photos go back years. Ghost looked at Maria, at Luna, at the ambulance preparing to leave. How many? We're still counting, but Ghost, Danny put a hand on his shoulder. You didn't just save one family tonight. You may have saved a lot more. The courtroom fell silent as Maria Santos walked to the witness stand. Her heels clicked against the marble floor. Every seat in the gallery was full. Reporters lined the back wall. Cameras were not allowed, but sketch artists captured every moment. Maria raised her right hand and swore to tell the truth. Her voice did not waver. Ray Dalton sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit. His wrists were cuffed to a chain around his waist. His lawyer had tried to clean him up. Fresh shave, neat hair, but nothing could hide the emptiness in his eyes. The prosecutor approached the witness stand. Miss Santos, can you describe the night of December 14th? Maria took a breath. She looked at Ray across the courtroom. She did not flinch. I finished my shift at the diner around 11. I walked to my car in the parking lot. The streetlight was out. I remember thinking I should tell someone about that. What happened next? I heard footsteps behind me. Before I could turn around, someone grabbed me. A hand covered my mouth. An arm wrapped around my waist. Did you recognize your attacker? Maria nodded. It was Ray. I knew his voice. I knew his smell. He whispered in my ear that we belonged together. The prosecutor walked her through every detail. The drive to the cabin, the ropes, the cold, the threats. Maria answered each question with quiet dignity. When she described the moment Ray raised the knife, her voice finally cracked, but she kept going. The defense attorney tried a different approach during cross-examination. He suggested Ray was mentally ill. He painted pictures of a troubled childhood, an absent father, a mother who never showed affection. Isn't it possible, the attorney asked, that my client needs treatment rather than punishment? Maria's jaw tightened. Your client spent 2 years planning to take me. He broke the street light himself. He slashed tires so the parking lot would be empty. He kept photographs of other women and children. She leaned forward. That's not illness. That's patience. The courtroom stirred. The defense attorney had no follow-up questions. The prosecution's case took 3 days. Witnesses testified about Ray's history of stalking. Former girlfriends described similar patterns of control and obsession. Police experts detailed the contents of the lockbox found under the cabin floorboards. 47 photographs, 12 different women, 6 children, notes about daily routines, maps with addresses circled in red. Maria was not the first woman Ray had targeted. She was simply the first he had acted upon. The jury deliberated for 93 minutes. When they returned, the foreman stood with a piece of paper in his hands. The judge asked for the verdict. On count 1, kidnapping, guilty. Count 2, aggravated assault, guilty. Count 3, stalking, guilty. Count 4, attempted murder, guilty. Maria closed her eyes. Beside her in the gallery, Luna squeezed her mother's hand. The little girl had insisted on being there. She needed to see it end. Ghost sat 3 rows back with Diesel and Roach. They wore clean shirts under their leather jackets. They did not cheer when the verdicts were read. They did not react at all. They were not there to celebrate. They were there to witness. The judge scheduled sentencing for the following month, but everyone in that courtroom knew the outcome. Life in prison, no possibility of parole. Ray Dalton would never touch another woman again. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed Maria. She held Luna close and answered their questions with grace. Yes, she was relieved. Yes, she was grateful to the men who saved her. No, she did not wish to comment on Ray's sentence. The story spread beyond Cedar Falls. Local news became regional news. Regional became national. A motorcycle club riding through a blizzard to save a stranger. Bikers holding a kidnapper until police arrived instead of delivering their own justice. The Cedar Falls Gazette ran a front-page feature the following Sunday. Guardians in Leather, How a Motorcycle Club Saved a Mother and Child. The article detailed the rescue. It quoted neighbors who had been helped by the club over the years. The comment section filled within hours. A woman whose flat tire was changed on a dark highway. A family who received presents when the father lost his job. A widow whose abusive ex-son-in-law had threatened to disrupt her husband's funeral until 4 bandidos showed up and stood guard. The patches scared people. The leather made them nervous. But the actions told a different story. Ghost read the article on his phone while sitting alone at the clubhouse bar. He did not smile. Praise made him uncomfortable. He had not saved Maria for recognition. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost ignored it. Something made him answer. "Is this Ghost?" A woman's voice, thin and frightened. "Who's asking?" "My name is Rebecca. I live over in Millbrook. I saw you on the news. The story about the mother and her little girl." Ghost straightened on his bar stool. "What can I do for you, Rebecca?" A long pause. He could hear her breathing, trying to find courage. "I have an ex-husband. He won't leave us alone. The police say there's nothing they can do until he actually hurts someone." Her voice broke. "I have 2 kids. I'm scared for them. I don't know what else to do." Ghost pulled a pen from his pocket. He grabbed a napkin from the bar. "What's your address, Rebecca?" Luna sat at her desk in Mrs. Patterson's 3rd-grade classroom and stared at the worksheet in front of her. Math problems, addition and subtraction, simple stuff she used to finish in 5 minutes. Now the numbers blurred together. Her pencil trembled in her hand. A locker slammed in the hallway. Luna flinched so hard her pencil flew across the desk and clattered to the floor. 3 months had passed since that night. The snow was gone. Spring sunlight streamed through the classroom windows. But Luna's body still remembered the cold, still remembered the fear. The counselor said it would take time. The counselor said healing was not a straight line. The counselor used a lot of words that Luna did not fully understand. What Luna understood was this. Some nights she still woke up screaming for her mama. Some days she could not stop checking the windows. Some moments she forgot how to breathe. But other moments were different. A girl named Amelia sat down next to her at lunch one day. She had red hair and freckles and a laugh that sounded like bells. She did not ask Luna about the news stories. She did not treat her like something broken. She just shared her chips and talked about her cat named Pickles. Luna joined the art club because Amelia was in it. She discovered she liked drawing. Not pretty things like flowers or sunsets. She liked drawing motorcycles, big ones with chrome pipes and leather seats. She gave the drawings to Ghost whenever he visited. He came once a month, always on a Saturday. He brought groceries and filled saddlebags and fixed things around the apartment, the leaky faucet, the squeaky door, the window that would not lock properly. He never stayed too long. He seemed to understand that their new home needed to feel like theirs, not like it belonged to someone else. But his visits mattered. They reminded Luna that protectors existed in unexpected forms. Maria watched her daughter slowly reclaim pieces of her childhood. The nightmares came less often. The flinching happened less frequently. The laughter returned in small doses, then larger ones. Maria had her own healing to do. Every Thursday evening, she drove to the community center for a support group. 12 women sat in a circle of folding chairs. Some had been through worse than Maria. Some had been through different but equally terrible things. They shared stories. They listened without judgment. They learned together that survival was not weakness. Survival was extraordinary strength. Maria also signed up for a self-defense class. Every Saturday morning while Luna was at art club, she learned how to protect herself, how to break a chokehold, how to use her keys as a weapon, how to trust her instincts when something felt wrong. She would never be caught helpless again. Their new apartment was small, 1 bedroom they shared, a kitchen with a window that faced the parking lot, a bathroom with tiles that were chipped but clean. But it was safe. New locks on every door, security cameras mounted at the entrance, donated by the motorcycle club, motion sensor lights that clicked on whenever anyone approached. Maria had painted Luna's side of the bedroom pale yellow. Luna covered the walls with her motorcycle drawings. In the corner sat the stuffed rabbit from the dollar store, finally purchased with tip money that no longer needed to stretch so far. The club had helped with that too. They set up a fund for families affected by Ray Dalton's crimes. Maria tried to refuse. They did not listen. Ghost arrived on a Saturday in late April. Luna heard his motorcycle from inside the apartment and ran to the window. "Mr. Ghost is here!" She met him at the door before he could knock. He carried 2 bags of groceries and a small wrapped package. "What's that?" Luna asked, pointing at the package. "Patience," Ghost said. His voice was gruff, but his eyes were soft. Maria took the groceries while Ghost fixed a cabinet hinge that had come loose. Luna sat on the counter and watched, asking questions about every tool. What's that one do? Tighten screws. What about that one? Measures things. Can I try? Ghost handed her the screwdriver. She tightened the next screw herself, tongue poking out in concentration. Maria watched from the doorway. Something warm spread through her chest. On Luna's 8th birthday, the club threw her a party at the clubhouse. Streamers hung from the ceiling. A cake shaped like a motorcycle sat on the main table. 12 bandidos in leather stood around singing "Happy Birthday" in voices that were enthusiastic but deeply off-key. Luna laughed so hard she nearly fell off her chair. She opened presents. Art supplies from Maggie, a helmet her size from Diesel, a leather jacket with her name stitched on the back from the whole club. She put it on immediately and refused to take it off for the rest of the day. Maria watched her daughter spin in circles, showing off her jacket to anyone who would look. Tears pressed at the corners of her eyes. Good tears, the kind that came from gratitude so big it could not stay inside. She found Ghost standing alone near the back door, watching the party with an expression she could not quite read. Maria walked over and stood beside him. "Can we talk for a minute?" Ghost nodded. They stepped outside into the cool evening air. The sun was setting behind the trees, painting everything golden orange. "I want to do something," Maria said. "I want to help other women, other children the way you helped us." Ghost listened without interrupting. "I've been researching programs, shelters, support networks. There are so many people out there who need what we needed. Someone to show up, someone to care." Maria turned to face him. "I have ideas, but I need help. I need resources." She paused. Her voice dropped. "Would the club support me in starting something new?" Maria stood at the podium in the Cedar Falls Elementary Gymnasium and looked out at 200 small faces. Teachers lined the walls. Parents filled the back rows. A banner hung above the stage with words painted in bright colors. Luna's Light. 6 months of work had led to this moment. "My name is Maria Santos," she began. Her voice was steady now. Months of practice had burned away the trembling. "And I want to tell you about a very brave girl." Luna sat in the front row wearing her leather jacket with her name stitched on the back. She gave her mother a small nod. Permission to continue. Maria told the story in simple words. A mama who did not come home, a little girl who walked through the snow, strangers who became heroes. She left out the darkest parts. These were children. They needed hope, not nightmares. Luna knew something was wrong, Maria said, and instead of staying quiet, she asked for help. That one choice saved my life. She paused. Let the words settle. Today, we're going to teach you how to ask for help, too. We're going to practice safe words. We're going to learn what trusted adults look like. We're going to talk about listening to the feeling in your stomach when something seems wrong. Luna stood and walked to the stage. She took the microphone from her mother. 200 children leaned forward in their seats. Being brave doesn't mean not being scared, Luna said. Her voice was small but clear. Being brave means being really scared and asking for help anyway. The gymnasium erupted in applause. Ghost watched from the doorway. He did not enter. Large men in Bandidos jackets could still frighten small children. He understood that. But he wanted to see this moment, wanted to witness what had grown from one terrible night. Luna's Light had visited 12 schools in 6 months. They trained teachers to recognize warning signs. They gave families safe words and secret signals. They taught children that their voices mattered, even when adults told them to be quiet. The motorcycle club funded everything. They partnered with local police. They attended community events, not as intimidating figures, but as guardians. Parents who once crossed the street to avoid them now shook their hands and said, "Thank you." Ghost never expected any of this. He joined the club to escape his pain, to drown Sophie's memory in wind and miles and the roar of engines. Instead, he found purpose. He found that the hole in his chest could not be filled, but it could be used. 3 days after the school visit, Ghost rode alone to the Cedar Falls Cemetery. He had not been here in years. The pain had always been too sharp. He parked his motorcycle and walked between the headstones. Spring flowers pushed through the grass. Birds sang in the oak trees. The world felt impossibly alive for a place built on loss. Sophie's grave was small, a pink marble stone with a teddy bear etched into the surface. The dates carved below proved how short her time had been. Ghost knelt in the damp grass. He did not look for answers from above. He had lost that habit long ago. But he talked. "Hey, baby girl, it's Daddy." The wind rustled through the trees. "I met a little girl this winter. Her name is Luna. She's brave like you were. She walked through a snowstorm to save her mama." Ghost's throat tightened. He pushed through. "I couldn't save you, Sophie. I've carried that every day for 10 years. But maybe I can save others. Maybe every kid we help is a little piece of you coming back into the world." He placed his hand on the cold marble. "I hope you're proud of me. I hope wherever you are, you know that Daddy never stopped loving you." He stayed until the sun began to set. Then he stood, wiped his eyes, and walked back to his motorcycle. 2 weeks later, Ghost knocked on Maria's apartment door. He carried a pot in his hands. She had lent it to him for a club cookout, and he was returning it clean. Luna's face appeared in the peephole. The door flew open. "Mr. Ghost!" She grabbed his free hand and pulled him inside. The apartment smelled like garlic and tomatoes. Maria stood at the stove, stirring something that bubbled and steamed. "You're staying for dinner," Luna announced. It was not a question. Ghost looked at Maria. She smiled and nodded toward the table. "You heard her. Sit down." They ate spaghetti and garlic bread. Luna talked about school, about Amelia, about the new drawing she was working on for the clubhouse wall. Maria talked about expansion plans for Luna's Light. 3 more towns wanted to start chapters. When the plates were empty, Luna looked at Ghost with serious eyes. "Will you make a toast? Mama says we should be thankful." Ghost hesitated. He hadn't done this in a long time. But Luna was waiting. And denying her felt impossible. He raised his glass of water. Maria and Luna did the same. "To second chances," Ghost said quietly. "To brave little girls. And to families that find each other in unexpected ways. Cheers." "Cheers," Luna echoed. Outside the window, snow began to fall. Soft flakes drifted past the glass and settled on the parking lot below. But this snow did not feel cold. It felt like a promise, like peace finally arriving after a long and brutal winter. Maria cleared the dishes. Luna ran to the refrigerator and pointed at a new drawing taped to the door. "Look, Mr. Ghost, I made this for you." The drawing showed a little girl in a yellow jacket holding hands with a tall man in black leather. Above their heads in careful crayon letters, Luna had written 7 words. "My friend, Ghost. He finds lost people." Ghost stared at the drawing. Something cracked open in his chest. Not pain this time. Something warmer. "Can I keep it?" Luna beamed. "I made it for you." He carefully removed the drawing from the refrigerator and held it like it was made of glass. Maria watched from the kitchen doorway. Her eyes glistened. "Thank you," Ghost said. The words felt too small, but Luna understood. "You're welcome, Mr. Ghost. You're part of our family now." Outside, the snow kept falling. Inside, the apartment glowed with warmth and light and the sound of a little girl laughing. Some stories end with justice, some end with healing. This one ended with something rarer. It ended with a family built not from blood, but from courage, from showing up when it mattered, from believing a child when she said something was wrong. The Bandidos in this story were not superheroes. They were ordinary people who made extraordinary choices. They saw a little girl in trouble and decided that discomfort was worth it. They saw a mother in danger and decided that risk was acceptable. Every community has people like this. Sometimes they wear leather, sometimes they wear uniforms, sometimes they wear nothing remarkable at all. The question is not whether heroes exist. The question is whether we are willing to become one when the moment demands it.